While the close walls at Bathurst last week promised race-ending damage for minor mistakes, this week the terror stems from staring into the void. Virginia International Raceway is no walk in the park, but an off-track most often sends you flying into open, empty grass. While most should be able to continue their races, the time lost will certainly make or break many competitors' runs. The Grand East course makes an appearance for the first time here in Kamel, and we'll see who gets to claim its first victory as we get ready to watch round 9 of the iRacing Kamel GT series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Nick Schmeg. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Nick, it's been awesome seeing VIR's resurgence in American motorsports, especially with sports cars and endurance racing.
It absolutely has, and folks, if you're overwhelmed looking at this track from above, then just think of how much more chaotic it must be to look at that track from inside a cockpit. Virginia International Raceway is a track that gets overlooked a lot of times in both the real world and the sim racing world, but its history is a fascinating one for sure. It was one of the most prestigious sports car venues in the 60s, but after some financial trouble, became 1,200 acres of farmland from 1974 to 1998, when it was brought back from the dead and turned into the VIR we know and love today, with a series such as IMSA and the Trans Am series making annual visits. The Grand East course is a labyrinth. Not only is it tight and tricky, featuring 26 turns over a long 4-mile or 6.4-kilometer circuit, but it features elevation changes of over 130 feet. The Kamel GT series is one known for some of the best sim racers in the world being faced with unexpected havoc and chaos, and the track here in the small town of Alton is sure to bring a whole new challenge to them today. To get a better look at what the drivers are in for, let's send you down to the track for the GSRC lap guide.
All right, we've got Phil Lake in the GSRC Audi, so let's do a lap around VIR. Down towards the horseshoe, this is going to be a very popular place to pass. But watch out under braking, because it's not uncommon for drivers to come in too hot and slip way off into the grass. Make sure and tuck it down into both apexes, and then you're on your way to NASCAR Bend. The kink in the braking makes this 90-degree corner so much harder than you'd expect. Dip a wheel off into the grass and you're likely to spin off, sometimes flying as far as hitting the tire barrier. Then it's a real short burst into left hook, but the name is a misnomer. It's more like a chicane with how it leads back into the arc that takes you into the snake. And that's going to be a pretty important section in this Grand East layout anyways. The snake is still single file, but anyone who gets a run on you now has an opportunity with the braking into the uphill. And while the sudden rise heading into the corner might give you grip, the crest at the top makes it tighten, so it requires a pretty late apex. From here through all of the infield, drivers need a lot of throttle modulation and patience. It's tight, twisty, and very low speed, honestly made for much lower powered machinery. The back and forth here at 11 and 12 in particular are going to feel like you're absolutely crawling. Eventually, you do get to stretch the engine's legs out a bit on the way down to the spiral, but don't let it fool you into braking too late. It'll feel like you can take it in deeper, but that will bite you. It's blind with very little grip, and understeering wide will garner you a cut course pretty easily. On top of that, there's some bumps and dips in the grass that can damage your car badly. Eventually, coming out of the hairpin, you'll get another squirt of the gas before fishhook. But unlike a lot of corners at this track, it takes an early apex instead of a late one. You're now back onto the main course, and you're climbing up the hill towards South Bend, so this should feel a lot more familiar. The circuit drops away from you big time on the exit of this kink, but you've got no time to dwell on that because you've got to switch sides for Oak Tree. You'll be braking and turning on your way in, which is part of what makes precision so tough here. And a good run off the second apex is critical because it dumps you onto the backstretch. But if you're side by side with someone by the end of the straight, it'll be a game of chicken into the roller coaster. A blind crest combined with a kink in the track and the runoff is downhill, let's just say expect mistakes. Now we'll drop back down towards Hog Pen. Smart drivers will set themselves up by hugging tight to the left on entry and then easing back onto the power as you exit the corner. This turn goes on longer than you'd expect, and it'll be easy to wind up in the grass. But hopefully, if you've kept it all together, you've now finished a lap around VIR. There you see a lap around VIR here. The Grand East course specifically, I'm pretty sure we haven't had any series actually run that yet here on GSRC, so another first for us. But it is not our first time looking at the points, which in the GTP standings has been somewhat one-sided. Ardo Iamaki taking most of the wins. The good news for him is that the only other driver to beat him on course in the championship races has been Teemu Toika. And you can see he's all the way down in 4th, and that's only because he got his second win last round at Bathurst, jumping him up 2 spots into the top 5. Fabian Gerber has been consistent, though, so if Ardo does slip up too much, then Fabian is there to try and capitalize. Justin Albrecht relatively close to Fabian, back there in 3rd with just 7 points separating them. And then Toika's got to be a little bit more worried about John Keefe, who is not too far behind him as well. Looking at the GTP Lights standings, Martin Krejcik has been almost tradition at this point, is up at the top of those. Branislav Robanek is behind him in a long ways back, actually bigger gap than what we see in the regular GTP standings, with Fonseca, Bell, and Sakura rounding out your top 5. What about the 2 Audi classes? What are we looking at for the championships there, Nick?
Well, like you said, we have only had 2 winners in the Nissans this year, and we've only had 3 in the Audis. Riley Thompson is not one of those, but he is on top of the points with some solid consistency. 2 points is what he leads Milan Arnozzi over by right now. Arnozzi has 2 wins, Sonoma and Indy, and they are followed by Phil Lake, 20 points back, Dennis Neidhart, 22 points back, and Nicholas Makanos, 28 points back. And we also have the GTU standings in this class. Hideki Koivisto continues to lead that with Adam Lindgren 6 points behind, with Matthew Jetse, Reed Miller, the 2 Canadians, following them in 3rd and 4th, as well as Michael Haynes, 43 points back in 5th.
Now, if you've never watched Kamel GT, this is going to be an interesting one with this track layout, but let's get you familiar with what we've got in store. This is round 9 out of 12 because this is official racing. But in this specific championship that they run here, the VCR, it is 2 drop weeks instead of the 4 that you get in official racing. The race distance today is their sprint format at 40 minutes. The cars are open setup, so anything that you could do to the Nissan GTP-X or the Audi 90 in the real world, you could do here in the sim. 25 points for a win, goes all the way down to 20th place, but we don't have 20 cars in each class. In fact, we have 23. Bathurst obviously pulling a lot of these sports car fans away today, but still some stalwarts out here in Virginia to race with us. Now, thank you for joining us here on the iRacing Esports Network. We highly encourage you, if you've been enjoying our coverage here today on GSRC, to subscribe to IESN. All you got to do that is to click the big red subscribe button, and then you'll get all of IESN on your YouTube feed. We've got qualifying going right now, and, well, the drivers have all been through virtual inspection, but if you do a lot of inspections yourself, in fact, if you do independent vehicle inspection, there is a lot to keep track of. Whether it's an old school pile of paper documents or a computer full of spreadsheets, it can get overwhelming. But we have great news for you. Inspectoride is the fastest way to conduct your vehicle inspections and create reports. You can save time, eliminate paper, keep better inspection records, and simplify your life all from your iPhone, iPad, or Android phone or tablet. You can find out more about this useful app at inspectoride.com/iRacing, where you can even download a free trial to find out if Inspectoride is right for you. So check it out. Once again, that address is inspectoride.com/iRacing. Taking a look at the qualifying, it's long laps around here. 2.5 minutes for the Audis, but for the Nissans, Carl Janssen with a 2:10.5 currently has it on the pole. Justin Albrecht is trying to give chase to him.
He is indeed. Lots of names we don't see too often in this series, like Carl Janssen at the top right now in the Nissans with a 1 second lead currently over Justin Albrecht, but still a lot of drivers putting some times in here, so it'll be interesting to see how they shuffle out.
Down in the Audis, it's Milan Arnozzi continuing his forward momentum up to be not just a race win contender, but maybe even a championship contender at some point. He's on the pole with a 2:26.1, and he's looks like he's actually still halfway through this first lap. Might have enough time to complete it. It's so tight for some of these drivers. Justin Albrecht finishes his second lap and does not take the pole away, though he does improve his time by a couple tenths.
Yeah, you mentioned Milan Arnozzi there. Like I said earlier, he has the 2 wins this year at Sonoma and the Indy Bike Layout. He has 3 podiums in total. It's been a statement year for him for sure to get up here in the GTO class and to make a run in the top 5 in points.
Watching Arnozzi come around to the roller coaster, one of the tricky braking zones, many of them around this circuit, and then back downhill into Hogpen. He's being chased by Rob Olenek, who's coming off a bad finish a couple hours ago in the Lotus 49. He's actually just crossing the line now, but he does not improve, so he'll stay at least in second for the time being. Arnozzi crosses the line, and that lap will not count for him. Must have had an off track somewhere. Antti Turho, the Finnish driver, going to be the next one to cross with just about 11 seconds to go. Also had an off track, so he's not going to be able to count that lap. Is there anybody else able to finish? Riley Thompson goes one better and, in fact, gets himself up to 5th, but that's a little far down compared to what we're used to with him. That's all the time we have for qualifying, unfortunately, so let's go through your starting grid. Carl Janssen will be on the pole with Justin Albrecht next to him in P2. Then row 2 will have Arto Iamaki on the inside. Tapani Linoluoto starting 4th. Fabian Jungbluth will be P5 at the drop of the green. Martin Krejcik starts 6th. Then in 7th, it is John Keefe, followed by Bronislav Robanek in 8th. P9 will be Paul Ferrer, and Ryan Lang did not get a lap time in, so you won't see him until the end of our sheet here, but he will start 10th in the Nissans.
But right behind them, Milan Arnozzi is the first of 13 Audis that have entered today's race. Rob Olenek going to join him on the front row there, and they are followed by Antti Terho, Nicholas Makanos, and Riley Thompson, who will be starting 5th. Dennis Neidhart in the 9 car, and Reed Miller in the 17 car, going to be 16th and 17th overall, followed by Franco Scurry, Hideki Koivisto, and Cedric Poyle, those last cars to get a qualifying lap in. The 3 drivers that did not get a lap in, rounding out the field of 23 today, it's going to be Inho Jian, Adam Lindgren, and Michael Haynes.
Cars are lining up here for a sort of new circuit here for the Kamel GT series. Now, they've raced at VIR plenty of times, so they should be mostly familiar. I have a feeling that it's traffic in that infield section, Nick, that's going to cause a little bit of a headache today.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's any saving grace in that that little clause there, I mean, they might not be dealing with traffic nearly as much as they are other tracks, just because the track is so big, and we do have a little bit of a smaller field today, but they're going to be dealing with lots of traffic nonetheless, and it's going to be a headache already because of all the challenges that this track presents. And then you throw in dealing with traffic and all of those tight, blind, twisty portions with the hilly section. It's going to be quite the challenge, quite the handful for these guys today.
I have no doubt, and a handful, especially for the Nissans. I mean, for our viewers who haven't watched before, we always talk, Nick, about the turbo lag, and for our audience that isn't necessarily big on racing, especially racing of these cars from the 80s that had a lot of turbos in them. Explain exactly what we're talking about when we mention this turbo lag and why it relates so much to this course.
Yeah, so a lot of times these older cars that they're driving, these Nissans, they are equipped with that turbo, but a lot of times these guys get the power down and it kind of stutters a bit, and then the turbo kicks in and the rear wheels really get spinning. And a lot of times when you have a track like this, lots of really slow, tight turns, they're going to be on and off that gas pedal a lot today, and it's going to create maybe a little bit of an unsettling feeling underneath the car.
Hopefully they can keep it underneath them, and you can see just how twisty it is. And this is the main course, mind you, that they're heading through the left hook on board Robanek and then up into the Snake. That has certainly caused some issues with traffic in the past with this series. And this is where they dive off the main course into the infield section, this one called the Uphill. Now, I noticed on our lap guide that even Phil Lake in the Audi, which doesn't ride incredibly low compared to, say, the Nissan, he was getting sparks bouncing out from under the car just as they climbed onto that next section of track. Is damage going to be a common thing today?
It could be, and the chassis kind of rubbing the ground. A lot of these parts, it's hard to create a setup that's equipped for this track, just because there's no two parts of this track that are alike. Some of them are way up on a hill, and some of them are going up a hill. Some of them coming down the hill. As you see, the Nissans are starting to make their way down the hill now, but it's going to be interesting. And you have those curbs as well. You got to watch out for, which is not going to help these guys at all.
Nissan's notorious for not being friendly with the curbs, and they are everywhere around this track. I liked Milan Arnosi's little note on his rear wing. It was eat, sleep, race, repeat. So definitely a lot of drivers on iRacing, I think, who subscribe to that philosophy. Now they come back to the main course out of Fish Hook. That's one thing they got right about this course, I have to say, Nick, is at least when they brought it back, they brought back a lot of corner names. There's too many American tracks I see anymore that are just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just such creative and inspiring names around this track.
It is always fun to have those names as they come down here. This is the famed oak tree turn that they kept from the original layout before this became a couple hundred acres of farmland. So that original oak tree, there are lots of history behind that. It's going to be not only a great thing to see in terms of scenery, but also a great passing zone today, I think.
Poor oak tree, rest in power, I suppose, as it's no longer there in real life. From what I understand, they did plant a new tree over in that corner, but it's much, much, much smaller right now. It's got a lot of years to make some history for itself. Hopefully, it'll see a lot of it. Down the long back stretch, climbing up the hill, one of the few long stretches that you'll see on this track, which will certainly make some intriguing situations. Will really show us who are the brave drivers, no doubt, because it comes up to this corner, the roller coaster. I talked about the difficult braking. You can see the crest there on track as the roof pace car leads them over it, and then in the downhill braking of the right-hand portion of the turn. And now they finally complete this long, long pace lap. The roof pace car will shortly be peeling in. We go racing for 40 minutes here in round 9 of the iRacing Kamel GT series. Around the last corner of Hogpen, there is that pit entry. Pace car is in. Janssen has control of the field. He gets a great jump over the likes of Justin Albrecht. But Albrecht immediately slots in the line to try and cover off the likes of Iamaki. He gets a little bit of a slipstream. Coming up to the first corner, tries to go around the outside. Iamaki takes a small peek, but they're mostly single file, and they're clean through the first corner. Let's go to the Audis.
Not as clean in the Audis. Nicholas Meccano's got booted off the track, and he is going to recover after starting 4th in last place, but it's Milan Arnosi leading Rob Olenek and Antti Terho right now. Your podium top 3 right now in the Audi.
Relatively clean otherwise. I did saw Koivisto also with a small off in the horseshoe, but otherwise managed to continue. Already they're working through the left hook and then through the snake, but the Nissans are in the infield portion of the track, winding and weaving their way through. Carl Janssen leading them up and down towards the spiral. Talked about this being that downhill section we saw in the lap guide. Drivers expected to have a lot of problems through here with this blind corner. You can see just how blind from this camera angle right here that Dougie set up, that still camera really showing how much of a crest they come over.
Yeah, that is so difficult for them to deal with. And Hideki Koivisto has had another off. He's going to get it back going. Just so many different turns to learn here, and it's so hard to keep track. And Adam Lindgren, another driver who has had a spin.
This one on the way down into the spiral, and it was all himself. Let's take a look at the replay. Fortunately, he found one of the close walls at this track.
Yeah, one of the few, and I think he was trying to get that turn, that kind of kink coming down the hill, straightened out a little bit, and swung it just a little bit wide, setting up for that maneuver, and just kind of lost control there. And it's a tough start for the day for that 20 car.
Grass is not your friend around here for sure. So second to last in the pack for the GTOs, but the GTP class is already completing their first lap. Janssen starting to stretch away from Albrecht, about second and a half between them. Albrecht as well trying to gap the likes of Iamaki, but Iamaki has it underneath the second as they come back towards the horseshoe and break for this sharp corner, this double apexer, weaving their way around. Nothing doing for now, just going to have to run in line behind him. I think we're going to have a pass down for third in the GTOs because Olenek just got overtaken by Riley Thompson.
Yeah, he was running second, and he slid off the track, allowing Anti-Terho to go by, and then Thompson also went by, so looks like Olenek falling back to fourth right now.
So despite Thompson's qualifying, it seems like he's doing pretty well in the race, and we're very early on in this thing. He's already up onto the podium, and he's no more than 3 seconds behind the leader, Arnozi. He still, as you mentioned, though, has yet to get a win this season. I have to wonder at what point he can break that duck.
Yeah, he's had 6 podiums this year, but has not found the top step of the podium yet. And I'm sure he'd love to do it. I'm sure he's loved to do it in races past, but I'm sure he'd love to break that streak today here in VIR. And he's got some work to do, but still early on. He's making some headway so far, so it's going to be very interesting to see him work his way up.
Them just wind their way through those S's. Over in the prototypes, we got a little bit of a battle happening for fifth. This is between the likes of Krejcik and Jungbluth. Krejcik and the green and white machine, blue and white belonging to Fabian and the number 11. Onto the backstretch, a decent exit. Now the cars really get to unwind as they work up and over the humps.
Yeah, they get that big run coming down the backstretch here, and I'm sure they love to unwind and get all the momentum out now, especially after not having to deal with traffic.
Yeah, it's going to change soon enough once they start lapping the field. Down towards Hogpen, you can see Jungbluth continuing to close under braking, but doesn't seem to be able to have the corner exits to really make a challenge on Krejcik. Up at the front, Carl Janssen sets the fastest lap of the race as he continues to gap the field himself. 2.7 seconds between himself and Justin Albrecht now.
Looks like for the most part, everyone's got themselves single file. Not seeing too many very close battles on track right now. It's a big track, so a lot of different turns kind of separate a lot of guys, but at the same time, one tiny mistake's going to bunch up a group of cars.
I think this is maybe a little bit of survival mode, Nick, that drivers find this track so difficult, they're kind of maybe backing it off a little bit and worrying about their own race.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just as difficult to remember what turn you're coming up on here than to race with someone else going into that turn. So drivers right now, I think, just trying to tick away some of the earlier portions of this race, earlier minutes, almost 6 minutes into this race right now. And like you said, a little bit of survival. Don't want a attrition-filled race here.
Riding on board with Neidhart, he's chasing the likes of Olenek. You can see above, in front of him, that's Riley Thompson up in third. They're starting to lose touch with Milan Arnozi slightly. Anti-Terho is also ahead of them, but pulling a small gap. It's Terho that is falling away from Milan at about 2 seconds now.
Yeah, we really haven't seen Milan Arnozi. We've seen him win in dramatic fashion at Sonoma. We saw him after a solid run at Indianapolis as well. We haven't really seen him start from the pole, pull away from the field, and then get the win, but I'm sure he's loving the view out there up front.
Terho racing for Glacier TV, a black stripe driver joining us once again. Surprised he's not over at Bathurst, but regardless, we are glad to have some of the top tier here on iRacing, trying out some of this vintage machinery. He continues to lead ahead of Thompson. Sounds like we had a change of position for fifth. Jungbluth on Krejcik finally got that one done. Now, where did this happen? Looks like it was to the roller coaster, I believe. Yeah, we're going to see here on the onboard, Nick.
Yeah, looks like he's just going to get that big run here and make it done going into the turn here. We talked about these Nissans really liking that straightaway and getting unwinding themselves a little bit, and it's exactly what Jungbluth was able to do there.
Out of the 007 cam, making it look easy. So as we come back live, Jungbluth now 5th, Krejcik down to 6th. This is one of the most calm Kamel GT races I've ever seen, to be honest. I think that is likely to change soon enough. Jansen is still chasing down our field in the Audis. It's taken that long.
Got a bit of a challenge here for second in the GTPs as well. Justin Albrecht under pressure from Ardo Iamaki.
Our 5-time winner so far this season. Ardo looking like 7-time winner, I believe it is. Ardo Iamaki trying to challenge Justin Albrecht as they come out of Fishhook. 6, thank you, Nick, for correcting me on that one. I'd get it eventually, I just got it on both sides. Oh, and Jungbluth's had a problem.
He has indeed. Looks like lost this one by himself. And remember, he had just passed Martin Krejcik, so he worked hard for that position and lost it coming out of a turn here, it looks like. Kept it off the wall, though.
Looks like the spiral bit another one. That was some definite turbo lag. As we come back live, and Iamaki's already got it done. Very similar to what we saw with Krejcik and Jungbluth.
Yeah, that straightaway is going to have to be a point of interest here for the rest of this race. We're going to have to watch drivers on that straightaway closely. We've seen that a lot in the Nissans, not as much in the Audis. Of course, they don't use nearly as much slipstream there, but taking a look at the Audis, there's quite a group of cars there that have gathered for second place.
Yeah, they've caught Terho now, and it's Thompson, Olenek, and Neidhart in order behind him. We talked about the slipstream. Let's see if anybody can utilize it. Coming off of Oak Tree. Ooh, Thompson with a bad exit there. And that caused Olenek to have to check up. So everybody behind is denied a chance as they get the speed up on the cars and hit the roller coaster.
Yeah, they all separate just a little bit because of that here on the backstretch, but as they get themselves geared up for the turn here. Looks like Olenek getting closer to the back of Thompson there, but no moves being able to be made yet.
Oh, Thompson off track in the hog pin. That's 2 positions gone in a flash. Powering through the corner, and he's back on with a rallycross style drift. Let's watch him use the 4-wheel drive to good effect here.
Yeah, that was impressive. Slid off the track to the right, shot back across the track, and then gathered it up on the left side of the track. Great drifting skills there in the Virginia grass.
Well, unfortunately, that sent the Mid-South driver down to 5th with about 3 seconds to make up on Neidhart, and now it's Olenek's turn. He's rocked up to the back of Antti-Terho, with Dennis Neidhart actually starting to apply some pressure, hoping to peel 4th place away from him.
Yeah, I think Olenek had a really bad turn 1 here on this lap, and he had a bit of a slide that allowed Neidhart to close in on him, and looks like Olenek's car not handling the best right now through a couple of these turns.
Now, I had an off track earlier, and I think it was also in Hogpen. Did he hit anything that could have gotten him some damage? It's interesting to see him off pace.
Definitely possible. It also could have been, we were talking earlier about maybe the undercarriage of these cars being slightly altered throughout the race, just nailing a couple of these curbs and bumps and hills. And so that could have also had a little bit to do with that, as Neidhart right now, he's there, he just not enough racetrack, the racetrack's not wide enough to get around him, it seems.
Well, we're learning a lot along with the drivers, and I guess the big thing I'm really noticing today is just, it seems passing is at a premium, Nick.
Yeah, it's hard to come by right now. They are struggling to get it done. We haven't seen, a lot of times in this series, we see passing as the result of traffic, different drivers setting picks on different cars, and we haven't seen too much traffic today, so that could be another factor going into why these guys just struggling to get some passes done. Jansen
is actually still trying to catch up to Adam Lindgren, But at the back of the field of the prototypes, we got a little bit of a battle going on, not just for 8th place, but 9th as well. Paul Farrer made an error very early. Oh, and he's going to dive it in deep into NASCAR bend. Not often you see passes into there, but he makes it stick. The number 22 with a brave move.
Yeah, that was a gutsy move indeed from Paul Farrer. Didn't want to be last place on the chart right now, and he's not going to be, and he's already opened up a bit of a gap over Ryan Lang. Next car ahead of him is Bronislav Robanek.
Straight up sneak attack. We watched it on board. He lined it up, and Lang could have no answer to try and defend that one. It was so sudden. Lang now to 10th in class. Let's check back in on that battle for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And Paul Farrer makes another error before we can jump away. That looks to be another case of trying to get on the power a little too eagerly. All right, back over to that battle for 2nd. Terho ahead of Olenek, ahead of Neidhart. Ante been holding on to this one, starting from 2nd place, I believe it was. So he's back where he started and has been trying to do his best to withstand the pressure as they come down to the spiral.
Yeah, Terho been really slowly cautious up through the S's there, and that really allowed Olenek and Neidhart to get to the back of him. But like we've been watching, just they can't get the pass done. Not enough room there.
Wow, look at how close Olenek gets to the back of him. That's what he needs when he gets to the braking zone. Unfortunately, maybe a little wide from Terho. He keeps it together through South Bend. But here comes Oak Tree. Can Rob set him up? He gets awful close. It's looking decent. A big bobble off the corner, and Ante Terho drops 2 positions in the snap of a finger.
Just on the gas a little bit too soon. He was under a lot of pressure from Olenek, so he wanted to get back on that gas and try to create it so Olenek couldn't get a run on him, but ended up almost wiping himself out, though. That was a good save, though, by Terho.
Olenek almost lost the spot, too. The draft helped Neidhart get right up to him, but he covered off the inside. Let's get an onboard replay with Terho there, because, boy, what a save. Maybe just a little bit of grass clipped on the outside, it looked like to me.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of just getting on the gas a little too soon and also sliding out into the grass just a little bit, you see there. And great save as he whips the wheel back to the left there and tries to keep that thing going straight. Some
quick hands, certainly, on the fin. Unfortunately, not quick enough to save him from dropping those spots. Now, what's fascinating is Riley Thompson, ever since he fell back with his error, is not gaining, it seems. He's still about 3 seconds behind even Terho now, and we know Terho's lost time.
Yeah, we haven't really seen this from Thompson a lot this year. He was on a great run of momentum to start this race, too. Really charging up through the field fast, and now he just can't quite get it going. Seems as if he's lost a lot of that momentum.
Well, let's see. Since his mistake, he's had, not outrageously bad laps. 29s, it looks like, so somewhat slower than what we saw before. I wonder if he also is experiencing a little bit of damage somewhere. Or maybe he is also backing the car off. Let's jump back to the second place. Oh, and that certainly won't help. Coming through this spiral with another off track. Let's go up to second place in the prototypes because Albrecht is still chasing Iamaki ever since Ardo managed to get by him. The number 6 car has been holding station right under that rear spoiler.
And these two cars also dealing with a little bit of traffic as well, as you see them get by Cedric Poyle there. At least Iamaki will get by him. Cedric is going to split those two.
Justin just catching him an absolute horrid place. Now he's able to slip by to the right side of Poyle. But look at the damage done. What was about a half-second gap has grown to about 1.6.
Yeah, as now Iamaki is going to get by Koivisto. And it looks like Hideki Koivisto going to split these two as well as they go by the old oak tree.
Traffic just not playing nicely with Justin Albrecht. But still a lot of racing left to go. We're only halfway into this race with 22 minutes on the clock. And just now, the fact that we're starting to see traffic tells you the length of these laps.
Yeah, these guys are catching a break today for sure in terms of traffic, but not so much in terms of the racetrack that they're at. This is still a very challenging track to deal with, and a little bit of traffic to give them a little bit more of a headache, but they seem to be dealing with the little bit of traffic they have fine today.
Let's check in on our leaders, though, because we haven't watched them in a while. Carl Jansen still up at the front, but he stretched away from Iamaki by a whopping 10 seconds. He's certainly got his foot down today. And then over in the GTOs, it's Milan Arnozzi still leading, but not as big of a gap. Olenek is back into second place, and it's about 5 seconds between himself and Arnozzi.
Yeah, not an overwhelmingly huge lead for Arnozzi right now. I mean, Olenek can still see that purple dot ahead of him on the racetrack, so it's still a lot of time left in this race for Arnozzi to make a mistake or get caught up in something, but still a lot of time for the cars following him are Olenek, Neidhart, and Terho to do that as well.
Indeed, once the leaders start to catch them, and the GTP cars have to work their way through, that could slow him up unintentionally. Still looking at the likes of Olenek and Neidhart, teammates working together in second and third. 2-3 finish is not going to be something they'll turn down, I'm sure.
Don't see too much more traffic ahead of the Nissans that they have to deal with right now. Looks pretty clean racetrack, as we've seen a lot of today.
Absolutely. Now, Carl Jansen is starting to come up towards them because he's catching Riley Thompson right now. Thompson probably the first of the front runners, I would say. You can see just how carefully he has to pick his way through, eventually finding a gap in a hog pen. Now speeds down the front stretch where he can see Antti Terho up in front.
Yeah, that's a tough spot to make a pass here on a slower car. I've seen a lot of Audis run into some trouble there, but yeah, like you said, Jansen's got 3 Audis ahead of him, and they are 3 fast ones as well, battling with each other. So Olenek, Neidhart, Terho, the next 3 he's going to be coming up on here in this lap.
Good news for both parties is the fact that Jansen isn't being chased very quickly by the cars behind. Means he can certainly pick and choose where he wants to try and make this overtake as we ride on board with our GTP leader. He's going to get stuck behind in the snake. That's Antti just ahead of him. And he'll get one at least before the infield section.
Yeah, Jansen really in no hurry to make these passes right now. He just wants to make them cautious passes and make clean passes out of them. And he gets past 2. He's just got Olenek to go.
Held up the likes of Neidhart just slightly through 9, but seems like he's not been able to be overtaken by the likes of Antti Terho due to that. Trying to go the long way around, not much grip way out there. Jansen exploring exactly what his car can do. He is going to slow up Olenek through the fishhook, but he gets through cleanly after maybe a slight little scare.
Yeah, the outside line switches back to the inside, and Jansen's going to get that job done. And we look back, and it looks like Iamaki and Albrecht are going to be coming up on Thompson here soon. So they're going to be dealing with these 3 or 4 cars as well.
Oh, but Iamaki has put a big gap on Albrecht since that traffic held him up. It is now 4 seconds between second and third place. So Iamaki's been doing much better with the traffic than the likes of Justin.
He has indeed, and I can report Jansen just got past our GTO leader, Milan Arnozzi, cleanly, so he's got quite a lot of clean racetrack ahead of him. In fact, the next cars he has in line are lap-down Nissans to get around.
Our closest battle on track is still for P3 and the GTO class. That is Neidhart being chased by Terho. They come down the front stretch. They're going to have one more friend joining them. Second place, Iamaki rocks up to the back. He was in a battle earlier, but now that he's gapped the likes of Albrecht, curious how aggressive he's going to try and be through this battle. Very aggressive! Almost goes off track to try and avoid the likes of Neidhart. Somehow does it. Neidhart's still not clear of him. He slips inside, and Dennis probably shaking his fist or wiping his brow, one or the other, after that little incident.
Yeah, I was like you. I thought he had it gathered up, and then right when Iamaki pulled alongside him, he just didn't quite have all four wheels underneath him yet, so couldn't quite keep it straightened out there, but he did, and Iamaki now comes up on the back of Olenek to try to make that pass.
As that was happening, Fabian Jungluth had a big problem. Let's take a look at the replay here. He was trying to lap Koivisto coming out of Hogpen, and it looks like the curb or the grass, one or the other, sent him sideways and just narrowly avoiding the green Armco.
Yeah, he got his left wheels right up on that curb you're going to see here as he gets past Koivisto. Got past Koivisto cleanly, just couldn't quite, complete that pass fully since he got up on that curb coming back down on the front stretch and just lost control there. Like you said, almost into the green barrier there.
Oh, that was awful harrowing for him. Well, that puts him back to 7th position because of that mistake. So Jungluth, who started within the top 5, has got some work to do to try to make that one up.
He does indeed, and right now, back in the Audis, it looks like Neidhart has the lead right now over Terho still, but not too much room here for him to work with because Terho is definitely putting more and more pressure on that 9 car.
So far, this has been somewhat of a calm run through the Grand East course here at VIR. I have a feeling that the drivers are probably thankful it is a small field out here today. Imagine if we had one of our 50-plus fields trying to work their way around this place. Carl Jansen's been leading it for most of the way. Oh, as this battle heats up once again between Neidhart and Terho. Terho with his error coming out of Oak Tree has been looking for a way by. They've got more traffic behind him. This is Lino Luoto, sits in 4th in the GTPs. He's going to try and sit and wait for an opportunity, but he is losing gobs of time between these two.
He is indeed, and that's an awful spot to catch the Audis. And we've seen that happen a couple times today as he's going to try to squeak through the inside as they go up through the Grand East course, and Lino Luoto going to make that pass work there.
Without too much interruption. So Dennis looking at a potential podium, but he's got to hold off a driver with a big black stripe on his car to do it. No pressure at all. The DH driver has been withstanding it fairly well despite the GTP cars making life a little bit scary at times.
And Dennis Neidhart, he's had a great season. A lot of races. We saw him finish 2nd at Sonoma, I believe it was, when Milan Arnozzi got that win in the hectic-filled Week 3 race. So Neidhart's had 2 podiums this year. Terho, we have seen a lot of him this year as well, but he has no podiums yet. So he'd love to get that first one here today in Virginia.
13 minutes left on the clock now. This is where Ante lost it before. He's not going to get it this time. We had a pass for position back down in 9th place, actually, in the GTOs. Going to see the Italian Franco Scurry lose out to the Finn, Hideki Koivisto, through 12. It doesn't look like the normal racing line to me.
No, not quite, but Koivisto's still able to take advantage of the mistake there from the 15 car of Scurry and make that pass.
Oh, and Paul Ferrer is off track for about the third time. He's way off track. Boy, I talked about staring into the void. I think Paul Ferrer went into the twilight zone here. Look, where is he going?
Yeah,
talk
goodness. About an alternative racing line here. This is interesting.
Did you see the nose of that car suddenly look to the center of the earth? Dear Lord. And did something happen to Krejcik as well here? He's working through some...
he was also off track. Oh, he was off track with Thompson and Makanos. They had quite the incident there.
Ooh. Oh, wow. Let's watch that one more time.
Krejcik was trying to get around Thompson, and not enough room there. Thompson slid back into Krejcik, and Makanos was the innocent bystander that got caught up in that. Actually, Makanos had to go off track to avoid it.
Yeah, he came out the best of those three, which is insane much considering how much time all three of them lost. Let's watch on board from the Central Eastern European driver. Trying to see... Oh, you know, there looked like a little bit of ghost contact between the two of them. So I think that might be what set it off. Regardless, all three are continuing yet again. In fact, we've only had 2 DNFs so far today. Ferrer and Michael Haynes have taken it into the pits. We still got 21 running in the final 10 minutes.
That was some great driving there from Nicholas Makanos. It's really hard to tell yourself as a driver to avoid a crash by taking it off track. You oftentimes try to stay on track and then get it slowed down. But Makanos, great reaction time there to split the gap there and get off into the grass and keep it clean.
It's good news, bad news for the number 8 car. That bumps him up to 5th, and he's about 8 seconds ahead of Riley Thompson. The bad news is he's now about 13 behind Antti Turho in 4th, so he's probably not likely to gain any spots unless someone has a big problem ahead of him. But he survived without getting any damage, making contact with the other 2 cars spinning in front of him, so it's another positive to take out of this one. That's almost separates one of our other close fights. Really, it's down to Neidhart and Turho, the last 2 close to one another, and they're almost a second apart, to be honest.
Yeah, they look pretty close, but it's going to take a lot for Turho to get up to the rear of Neidhart. It looks like Neidhart might have stuck a tire out in the grass there a little bit.
Well, that'll help Antti catch up a lot quicker. But with them not being very close, let's real quick run you down on what everybody's race has been like so far. Carl Janssen has now got it up to 21 seconds ahead of Ian Maki. If ever there was a race for Janssen to show up again, it's this one, because he is absolutely dominating. Probably going to be grinning as he crosses the line with this victory, as long as he can keep it on track. That's Artu Iamaki that you see currently running in 2nd. May not be another win, but all of his championship rivals are behind him. And that's what's important to the number 4 as he continues on what is an impressive season. Justin Albrecht is running in 3rd place to round out the podium. He was giving Iamaki a run for his money. He was ahead of him, actually, in 2nd place earlier on, started from that P2, but fell backwards, and since then, and has had no answer for the Finn. Tapani Lindaluoto currently runs in 4th place. Has kind of been in no man's land. We've really only seen him when he's come through the traffic and split other battles that we've been watching, but Tapani going to get a nice haul of points today. John Keefe, I'm not sure that we've mentioned him even once other than the grid, but he is going to get a top 5 if he can keep this together. Another driver that really has had nobody to race with. Fabian Jungbluth has had some problems throughout the day, some of his own making, unfortunately. The number 11 now finds himself in 6th. Martin Krejcik, who was ahead of him, now falls back to 7th place with that recent error that he had running into the likes of Riley Thompson. The number 14 still going and still within about a second and a half of Jungbluth, so we could see a battle erupt there. Then you have to jump way back to Bronislav Robanek, 36 seconds back. He's running P8 and he's still going and on the lead lap. The last car still going in the GTPs is Ryan Lang, who has managed to survive pole fair despite pole being a little bit faster than him. He's running in 9th. Pole is a DNF as far as we can tell for today, last on the field. What about the GTOs?
It all starts up front with Milan Arnozzi in the 12 car. He started from the pole, and he is continuing to race up front, looking for his 3rd win of the year in a statement season. Behind him, it is Rob Olenek and Dennis Neidhart, who continue to have a Neidhart trying to chase down Olenek, but Neidhart has the likes of Antti Terho behind him, and that is your closest battle on track right now. 5th place in the Audis is going to be Nicholas Mikanos, who's had a little bit of trouble at the very start of this race. Started 4th, was booted off the track, came back onto the track in 13th out of 13, and he's back up into the top 5, so a solid run despite that today from Mikanos. Riley Thompson is behind the 8 of Mikanos. He was really another one of those hard chargers up early in this thing, made one mistake and haven't seen much of him today other than that. A couple names we haven't mentioned a lot today. Reed Miller having a great quiet day, as well as Inho Jian in the 10. Hideki Koivisto is involved in a little bit of trouble involving some of the Nissans, but he's been faster than Franco Scurry, who sits behind him just a little bit in the 15. They were battling quite a lot earlier. Adam Lindgren is still on the lead lap for the Audis. He's back there in the 20 car in 20th overall. And then your last 3 cars overall on the track right now. Cedric Poyle in the 18 Audi, Paul Ferrer in the 22 Nissan, and Michael Haynes, another one that's taken it behind the wall today, the 23 Audi car.
Only 5 minutes left to go in this 40-minute race. Terho's starting to get quite close. In fact, is he going on the attack now? Neidhart goes defensive, middle of the track to try to hold the Finn off. And this is a credit to this series that we're seeing Terho struggling just to get onto the podium. A black stripe driver is fast, and we've seen that Terho is fast, but even he seems to need a little bit of an adjustment to these older cars to try and be competitive.
Yeah, definitely. It's a unique track to deal with unique cars, and Terho struggling just a little bit here, but Dennis Neidhart, not even one of our maybe top runners a lot of times in this class, being able to hold him off right now. Very impressive run from that 9 car of Dennis Neidhart.
Up towards NASCAR Bend. Neidhart slightly off the apex, but able to carry the speed as Terho maybe takes a little poke to the left side of the car, but nothing doing there. This could be an opportunity if he can get a run through the S's, and in fact he does. Is Neidhart expecting it? Yes, he is. He covers off the inside into the uphill. It's going to make Terho go the long way around. Not sure that there's going to be much grip there. Oh, they come together! He still manages to get around. Antti puts his elbows out and takes 3rd place away by force.
Going up through the uphill, just not enough room there for Neidhart. He had to get on the curb. It unsettled the car a little bit. Got into the side of Terho, and now it looks like Antti might be able to pull away. This is all while they're holding up Fabian Jungbluth, the number 11 Nissan right behind him.
Let's watch this one more time. I didn't think he'd be able to take it around the outside of the uphill, but he proved me wrong. Watch this. This is more due to Neidhart just getting a little bit of the grass, it looks like. A little bit of a door jam. But regardless, Terho survives it and makes the pass stick.
Great driving by both of those guys. Honestly, it was a really tough part of the track to try to make that work, as we see Fabian Jungbluth split them right now. For the moment, he'll get by Terho here with no problem, I expect, once he gets that car wound up.
Yep, looks like Jungbluth going to leave them behind on the backstretch. And I think we might get the white flag next time by. Carl Jansen currently coming out of the infield with less than 3 minutes to go. They're running laps of about 212, 213, the top GTPs. Takes the likes of Inho Jun. They're still running down in 8th.
It's been a great race for Carl Jansen today. Haven't seen him at all, I don't think, for this season. So it's a great debut race for him this season in this series and putting on quite the show up front.
Yep, I believe this and I want to say the Apex Online Racing's Formula Renault series was the first time we saw Jansen. There might have been absolute beginners. That was Miller we saw off track. That was just at the roller coaster, simple out braking. As Jansen crossed the line, we will indeed get the white flag here, lapping the likes of Bronislav Robanek, putting him a lap down. Not missing too much else in the field. Neidhart and Terho are still close, will break in if those two wind up starting to fight each other. I'm sure Dennis regrets losing the position so late in the race, especially with it being a podium potentially. Got to give the Scandinavian of Jansen just a little bit of screen time here. Poor guy has been a little lonesome, I'm sure.
He has been. He hasn't even had other Audis to play with either up there. He's been all alone at the front of this thing, but I don't think he's going to mind that today, given the result that he's got coming for him. Just a handful of turns left.
Don't need to go to it. I can report that Reed Miller had another off and actually hit the wall in the snake, but he's able to keep going. For some reason, we've had Cedric Poyle head into the pits, so we'll have to look into that later and see what caused him to retire early. This is our leader over in the GTOs, Milan Arnozzi, who will get a full lap through because Jansen's nowhere near close to lapping him another time. Arnozzi having a relatively similar race to Carl, except he's had to be a little bit more mistake-free because it's about 4 seconds from him to Olenek.
And still nothing to report back in the battle for third place in the Audis. Right now, these two guys being split by Martin Krajcik, so Terho being able to hang on to this Neidhart, I think, just looking for last second run that he might be able to get on him.
Carl Jansen, in the meantime, is coming out of the roller coaster and down through Hogpen. The orange and white Nissan of the Scandinavian has been untouchable today. VIR Grand East's first winner here in the Kamel GT Series is Carl Jansen today.
Looks like it'll be Iamaki holding on to second. Albrecht did close in a little bit towards the end here.
Too little too late for the Ohio driver. Oh, and Thompson just took a tow, and I'm not sure why. We'll have to get to it in a little bit because Arnozzi... Oh, wait, no, Arnozzi still has about half a lap left to go. Maybe we do have time to see what happened to Thompson here. Oh, excuse me. Thompson was a lap down, so he was behind the leaders. So no dramas there happening with him, although I'm sure he's incredibly disappointed with settling for 6th place. This is the number 12 leading the way. That number is certainly going to be going lower and lower because at 3,300 for his iRating, Arnozzi has got to be steadily climbing with now, let's see, his 3rd win of the season.
It is indeed, and it's going to be Rob Olenek behind him. He's had a clean race as well. He's going to be taking the likes of 2nd place, it looks like, and don't see much of a challenge right now from Dennis Neidhart to get back on the podium and kick Antti Terho off. So I think that's going to be your top 3 finishers, pending a clean rest of the last lap.
That's got to be so tantalizingly close for Rob Olenek to get it down to under 4 seconds. After having that battle for the podium earlier on, but Arnozzi was the one that put it on the pole, and then from there, he managed the race beautifully. Sometimes that's what you got to do. You can't always have exciting ones, and Milan hailing from Central Eastern Europe, comes out of Hogpen, climbs his way up the hill, and Milan Arnozzi takes win number 3 here at Virginia in the Kamel GT Series.
Olenek gonna cross the line in second, and Neidhart made a late run, but not gonna be enough to get around Terho.
And that's going to be it for our drivers in both classes. We're going to go to break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back, though, so don't go away, because we have the official results as well as driver interviews. And all the upcoming races here on GSRC is going to be on your screen.
Growing up as a kid in Oklahoma, where I'm from, the Chili Bowl is the biggest race that we have. The Chili Bowl has kind of been my favorite race of the year. Growing up a dirt racer in Oklahoma, that's kind of the holy grail.
Welcome back to Virginia International Raceway. We just watched round 9 of the iRacing Kamel GT Series, and Carl Janssen was the one who came away with the win with probably the calmest race he's ever seen here in Kamel. Ardo Iamaki tried to follow him home, but it was a distant 25 seconds for him. Justin Albrecht winds up in P3, rounding out the podium. Was challenging Iamaki after he was overtaken, but just didn't have the pace. Tapani Luoto winds up going from 4th to 4th, with John Keefe climbing up 2 spots. He winds up with a top 5. Fabian Jungbluth, he recovers to 6, with Martin Krejcik behind him. One of the most dramatic moments of the race we saw with him and 2 Audis, finishing 7th. Bronislav Robanek, he gets 8th, the first car lap down, with Ryan Lang 9th and 10th, and the GTPs is pole fair.
Milan Arnozzi going to be taking the win in the Audis, his 3rd win of the season, followed by Rob Olenek and Antti Terho will be joining him on the podium there for this race. Dennis Neidhart put up a fight, but it wasn't enough at the end to defeat the black-striped Antti Terho. Neidhart's going to have to settle for 4th in the class. Nicholas Makanos will round out your top 5 after a solid charge back up front after a first lap incident he was caught up in. Riley Thompson, not sure he's going to be loving a 6th place finish, but that is what he's going to have after today's event, followed by Inho Jian, Reed Miller, Hideki Koivisto, Franco Scurry, rounding out the top 10 in that class. Last 3 cars to finish in the Audis: Adam Lindgren, Cedric Poyle, and Michael Haynes.
We've got our winner in the GTP class ready to talk to us, Carl Jansen, in the booth. And Carl, we were commenting on this. This seemed like possibly the calmest race in Kamel GT that you've ever seen. There was nobody within your class in sight, and traffic seemed a little sparse.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say really about the pace. The pace was really good. So yeah, wasn't.
Talk to us a little bit about the challenge of this circuit. Then, this is the first time that we've covered the Grand East course here on GSRC. So, what's it like dealing with the infield with these monstrous prototypes?
The infield is actually very fun, in my opinion. It's a little bit of a karting track, so yeah, you have to drive the cars in a very special way. You can't really go on throttle anywhere. It's like half throttle to minimize the wheel spin from the turbo. Yeah, it's just incredibly fun. I think it was a little bit tricky with the traffic in there though, because the Audis had so good traction from the all-wheel drive. It's like if you mess up the exit, you're not gonna get past them.
Were there any curbs in particular that were a little dangerous for this car? I know that they can be a little harsh in some corners at this track.
Yeah, pretty much every curb was dangerous for it. That was slow speed. The high speed is pretty fine because the car has so much downforce on it, so it doesn't kill you. But if it's mid to low speed, then yeah, all of them are very dangerous.
Well, it'll be a little bit more of a traditional circuit next time with Spa. Will we see you in a week's time, and will you come back?
Maybe we'll see what happens with the pro qualifiers for the GT World Championship. Next week is another qualifying round, so yeah, we'll have to see.
Well, we wish you the best with those efforts over on the pro level, and congratulations on another win.
Thank you, guys.
That was Carl Jansen, first place in the GTP class. Up next, John Keefe talking to Nicholas Schmeg.
Yes, John Keefe broke into the top 5 for the first time since his run at Indianapolis earlier this year, which was following a podium at Detroit. So, John, I'm sure you're fairly happy with this result. Started 7th, finished 5th, and quite the tough track you had to deal with today.
Yeah, the track is definitely a challenge. I mean, I personally enjoyed it once I ran it for the first time in a really long time. So, yeah, my positions today were gifted to me. Fabian spun out of 6th, and I'm sorry, from 7th, and I got 7th, and then Martin had an issue, and I didn't get here on pace, I can assure you that. So, yeah, pretty happy with the top 5 for sure.
Yeah, it was a tough track indeed. A lot of tough curbs that the Nissan had to deal with, a lot of slow turns, and the turbo lag was quite the handful, it looked like, for sure. But on the flip side, it looks like you guys had a bit of an easier event this week dealing with the Audi traffic. You didn't have too much of that to handle today.
Yeah, and everyone that was in the Audi class today, I think there was only 1 or 2 names I didn't really recognize. So, you know, usually when you come up on the Audi class, like, you usually know who you're, running with, for the most part, because we've been running together for so long. We all trust each other, know kind of what's going to transpire almost ahead of time in a lot of cases. So, yeah, pretty easy, a lot easier than I thought it would have been just based on practice. So all in all, not too bad.
All right. Well, like Joe said earlier, we have go into a lot more of a conventional track and a lot more popular of a track with a lot of drivers. How does Spa suit you? Are you looking forward to that next week?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Spa, so I'm always looking. I'll race any car at Spa. That's kind of my deal with Spa. So very much looking forward to it.
All right. I think you join a lot of the drivers in that opinion. It's going to be a fun one for sure next week to see the competition level there and the speed of everyone as well. It's going to be very fun to watch.
Oh, I think I lost you. Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you, and we will be looking forward to seeing you next week at Spa. Going to be a fun one for sure.
Very much. Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
That was John Keefe, 5th place in the GTP class. We have who wound up in, I believe it was 10th in the GTOs, 11th. We have Adam Lindgren with us, who had an exciting first lap that you can see it there on the replay right now. Seemed a little bit of controversy with that 3 wide move there into turn 1. Adam?
Yeah, well, I'll be honest. I saw the opening and I put my nose in there, and it was before the turn-in point, so I think I'm pretty clear on that. But yeah, I mean, in general, you don't want to go 3 wide in turn 1, but since I took myself out later, I say, fair's fair, I guess.
Indeed. Tell us about that. Was that just clipping the grass slightly coming through the infield? What caused that spin?
Yeah, I was coming out of the slow S's. I clipped the grass on the right side and then just could not recover the car. Honestly, I wasn't sure I wanted to talk to you guys today after I did that, but gathered it back up, stayed on track, and even though the engine was a little damaged from that incident, was able to keep it going and pick up 11th.
So this is a bit of a new one. Obviously, you guys have raced VIR and Campbell before, but what about this Grand East layout? Do you want to see it return? Do you want to try a different layout for this circuit?
I'd love to try a different layout. I think this one is a little bit too slow speed. It's really difficult for the GTPs to make safe passes on the GTOs, and everybody's in first gear a lot, which I know is a super hard struggle for the GTPs. It's a good test of everybody's fortitude and racecraft, but at the same time, it doesn't produce the greatest of racing.
Now, the good news is when you guys go to Spa next week, it is not the GP version, so you'll be starting with Eau Rouge instead of La Source. How do you feel your chances are there?
I hope my chances are better, just making sure to get the brake pedal dialed in and make sure that brake bias is all set, and just get ready to slam down the throttle and jam through those gears and make sure that I've got enough speed down the straights. You want to make sure you always have draft, so even if you get behind somebody, you don't necessarily want to pass them right away. You want to give it a little bit longer, so that way you have a good shot in a part where that's going to be a little bit more technical, so you can make a good pass.
Well, sounds like you've already sussed out the way around there. We will talk to you hopefully next week with maybe a little bit better finish.
Thank you, Joe.
I was Adam Lindgren, 11th today in the GTOs. And that's going to close us up today. Again, we want to thank our sponsor here for this broadcast. That is Inspect-A-Ride, who has a free download. If you want to try a trial version of their software, it is at inspectoride.com/iRacing. If you deal with any sort of a big group of cars where you have to look them over and keep track of a whole bunch of information, we highly encourage you to go and check out Inspect-A-Ride's software. A big thank you to iRacing as well for bringing us on to IESN. Once again, want to encourage you to subscribe to the network. All you got to do is click that big red button and you'll get all the races here that iRacing offers on your feed. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast. You can see them listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to Eric Ekholm and June Lalonde, who provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Nick, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. If you head on over to GSRC's page, we've also got a red subscribe button. Make sure and subscribe to us so that you don't miss a moment on the GSRC. As we mentioned, going over to Belgium for the next round. That'll be Saturday, February 16th at noon Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.